Hello, good evening. This is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I'm here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. So go ahead and put your questions in the comments so that I may answer your questions. I have a great topic for you today. So I'm going to be talking about mistakes, so common mistakes that I see when someone is removing the conditions on their 2-year green card to go on to a 10-year green card. And so one of those, I'm going to go through and one or two major ones that I see. Now, when I'm finished with that, you can put your questions in the comments. As I'm talking, you can go ahead and put the questions in the comments. You don't have to wait for me to finish. As soon as I'm finished, I will go ahead and answer your question. So put those comments in the comments if you want me to get to your questions soon. Now, first of all, before I get into the mistakes, let's talk about what a 2-year green card is and what is removing the conditions on the 2-year green card. So when you're married to your spouse for less than 2 years at the time that you're approved for permanent residence, you're going to be given a 2-year green card. So that means within 90 days before that card expires, you have to submit what's called an I-751 form along with your spouse. You must file jointly with your spouse in order to have those conditions removed, to turn it from a 2-year to a 10-year. And so what it does mean is that you have gone through the first phase of getting the green card. It's just that you got a 2-year and you have to go back to get a new green card. But there are issues here and the mistakes that I see others making that I want to bring to your attention so you can avoid those mistakes. So, for example, I spoke to someone who desperately needed advice, and that's the one that I can think of. I'm going to use it as an example. Now, this person underestimated the process. So that's the first mistake. You underestimated the process. You think, hey, I got the green card the first time. Why wouldn't they just issue me a 10-year green card? So that's the first mistake. And I think when you go in, assuming that it's going to be a simple, straightforward process, that's when it tends to come back and bite you in the butt. Because what happened is in the case that the person consulted me about, they went ahead, they decided, him and his spouse, they talked about whether they wanted to hire an attorney to help them. An attorney helped them through their first part of the process. And they said, well, should we get an attorney through the rest of our process? The both of them decided, hey, we're married. This is the real deal. Why do we need an attorney? Surely we'll go through this process and the immigration officers are going to see that we are still very much in love and a married couple, and they're just going to give the 10-year green card. And so they went through without legal representation, without legal advice. And when it got to the interview, it turned into a whole mess. But even when it was messy, so the spouse, so the person told me, he doesn't answer questions well, he doesn't remember birthdays. Well, in the line of questioning, everything went to hell in a basket, right? And the officers, just by him missing some questions, basically held the case for review. But they didn't state that to him, that they were holding the case for review. So he went on his jolly way with his wife and thought within a few weeks he's going to get his green card in the mail. Well, what they got in the mail was a notice of intent to deny. So, and they're outraged, right? Because they're thinking, what more could we have shown? What more could we have done to show that we're a married couple? Chances are they underestimated the process. They didn't know the legal requirements, and so they didn't give enough evidence. So now instead of getting the 10-year green card, he's facing fraud accusations, so accusations of marriage fraud, and now they're having to try to correct that situation. And so, it's now a more complex situation to fix. And so I think so much of this disaster, so much of this messy situation could have been avoided if, one, they didn't go in thinking this is simple. Just because we're married and it's real, there's no way they're going to see it any other way, because they can. And then the other is they decided that this process is so simple, they don't need an attorney, and they were wrong. So get that attorney. And so I do have these kinds of cases where I am fixing the situation. So I am now having to go back and fix the situation. We just had a victory last week, but it was, before the client got me involved, it was a messy situation because one, when she applied, she and her spouse, they were together and they filed jointly, but along the way, the spouse came out of the picture and she didn't know how to move forward. She was smart, of course, enough to get an attorney involved at that point, and we got the victory. So that attorney was me, and we got a victory in that case after, addressing all the issues. Now, when another mistake is, when you're going through the process, or even before you file to renew your permanent resident to go from the 2-year to the 10-year, some people, the spouse leaves them. The U.S. citizen or resident spouse leaves them or mistreats them or refuses to go ahead and jointly file with them. And they think at that point, I'm in trouble. I will not get the green card now because that spouse is refusing to apply with me. And so I'm just going to give up. Some people decide that they're just going to stay here, let the 2-year green card run its course, and then just stay here. And they never apply, thinking they don't have any option, because if the spouse isn't doing it with them, they don't have any options. And I'm here to tell you that's not the case. There is a special way that you can still apply on your own. You still do have to qualify, but that if you're going through divorce, if you have been divorced, if your spouse mistreated you, if your spouse went ahead, if you're going to face extreme hardship without without that status, it means that you could possibly apply for a waiver. So if there is hope, right? You do have options. And so it's very, very important for you to know that. Don't just give up, throw your hands up in the air and say, well, I'm getting a divorce. My spouse refuses to apply to get the 10-year, so I'm not going to move forward. You can. And it's just to put the effort into now pursuing that option. I can provide you the assistance you need, but first we'd have to do a consultation to be able to understand your situation and then confirm that we can go through your process. So go ahead, take your time, take the time and invest in that solution for yourself. Now, let's talk about your questions. Now that I have talked about the major problems that I see when you are removing the conditions on your 2-year to go to a 10-year, I want to talk about the questions that you have. So go ahead, put questions. Your questions can be anything that's immigration related. So go ahead and put those questions in the comments. Does changing your address multiple times raise a red flag for you? It depends. It depends on what kind of petition are you filing. It may, but I don't know. It doesn't necessarily it's not a standard concern. But say, for example, if you're changing your address and then you have a petition pending that you're living with your spouse, but it's showing that you're changing your address, and you're going to other addresses without that spouse. Or for employment based, so if you're supposed to be working in one place and then you're changing your address, the business or the employer is not in the place where you have changed your residential address to, then that can raise red flags, and it can possibly reveal violations of the terms of your employment visa or your your employment-based visa. So it just depends on what kind of petition are you applying for. Can a person who came on an H-2B get married to a green card holder and stay to get status, or go back to their country, then get filed for? Yes, so that's possible. It is definitely possible. Right now, the priority date is current. And what that means is that if you're here and you're with status, then you could apply for adjustment of status, which means that you could stay here, apply, and then get your work permit. So you you'd have the H-2B. I don't know when that expires, but at some point in the adjustment of status process, you would then get the work permit, so you can keep on working. Can you go from 2 years straight to citizenship? So no, but what happens, Serenity, is that, so if while you're applying for the 2 year, you get the time passes and you now start to qualify for permanent residence, what it means is that you can go ahead and apply for citizenship while you're also waiting to remove the conditions. When you're called in for the interview, though, they are going to first process the 2 year to the 10 year, and if you're approved for that, they will then move on to the citizenship process in the same interview. But you can't just say, I'm going to skip the removal of conditions and jump straight to citizenship. They're not going to skip that 2 year to the 10 year. Can I apply for adjustment of status if I'm in the US on a regular visa? My husband just became a citizen. So, I can't advise you whether you can apply, but what I can tell you generally is, as the spouse of a US citizen, you are able to adjust status here in the United States, but whether you qualify will come down to facts, what's going on in your particular circumstances. And that's where the consultation is going to be very important. Remember that the information I'm giving you is not legal advice, it's general information. And so when you are in the situation, you are ready to apply, you want representation, that's when you should need to schedule that consultation. Remember, let the example that I elaborated on this earlier in this live sink in for you, to understand that this is your future and you want to make sure that you're doing it right. The least you should be doing is making sure that you're getting legal advice about how you should proceed in your particular case. Generally speaking, spouses of US citizens do qualify to adjust status here in the US, whether they have status or not, as long as they entered legally, even if that stay has expired. So now it's up to you to just make sure you take the steps to ensure you're protected, your interests are protected, and you get representation you need to move forward. What happens if you don't file the I-130A? So it is a required form, and so you probably will get a request for evidence. And in some cases, it may be rejected, but it just depends on, was it not signed properly or was it altogether excluded? So Nadia, definitely schedule that consultation. Now that you brought that up, how do you schedule the consultation? So you can go to the link in the profile. It's going to take you to the website. There you will find the different ways to get in touch. You will see the phone number. You'll see the online chat. You're going to see the online contact form. All three lead to the scheduling coordinator. Say you just want to do this quickly and efficiently and conveniently for yourself, you can also schedule your own consultation. If you go to the link in the profile, it'll take you to the website. Go to the contact page, and you can walk through that form to schedule your own consultation. So it's quick, easy, in all different ways. Hi there, Ricky Flossie. So nice to see you. All right, so I'm here. So put those questions in the comments, because I am here to take your questions. So earlier in this live, you can go back and watch the replay. I talked about some major mistakes I see when people are removing the conditions from their 2-year to get the 10-year. To reiterate, when you're getting the 2-year and you're going from, when you get the 2-year and you're going to the 10-year, what it meant is that you were married to your U.S. citizen spouse for less than 2 years at the time that the green card was approved. And so they kind of put you through this probationary period where they want to make sure that the marriage is genuine. And so they, 90 days before the card expires, you must renew with your spouse. You must apply with your spouse again. And you must apply, not just fill out a form, it does include evidence, and that's where a lot of people go wrong as well. Evidence. They don't submit the right evidence or include the right documentation. Remember, the officer at the interview, they're not just going to look at chemistry. They want to look at the evidence. They want to interview you to determine whether you truly have plans to spend your life together. So that's the legal requirement, and usually there are very specific forms of evidence that they want to be able to be convinced that that's what you're doing. And so evidence at the front end of the application process is going to be very important. With my cases, what I find is they go, when they start from start to finish, we put good applications together. The reason is we know that what we submit at the front end is going to dictate how the rest of the process goes. It can even determine how quickly the process goes. And so that's another error I see. And of course, naturally, you're not an attorney, you don't understand the legal requirements, and so you may not put that application together in that way because you don't understand. I have been through this. I can walk through this process with a blindfold on. And so we put a good, thorough application together at the front end so that by the time we get to the interview, it is smoother and they have all they need. The officer has all they need to make a decision. So, all right. All right, so that's going to be it for me today. I don't see any more questions. I'll be back tomorrow. So I'm getting back on schedule. So I'll be back tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time, where you can come with your questions, and I will also come with a topic. I do have so much. Sometimes I have so much to tell you all that it's very overwhelming for me to plan what I'm gonna say. So tomorrow I'll have something to talk to you about again. So go ahead, look out for me, tune in tomorrow. Thank you for your time. Go ahead, go to the link in the profile to find out how you can schedule. You can do that on your own on the website, or you can contact us and the scheduling coordinator will assist you to schedule. So have a great one, everyone. Bye-bye.